Hello, David Clarke here from DVC Training, and today I'm going to be looking at a beta feature of DaVinci Resolve 21, which has already come in very handy for me, called the speech generator. This lets you create a voiceover from a sound file of anyone talking by typing some words and letting it do the rest. And if you want to know what it sounds like, you are listening to the results right now. So using this is actually pretty simple. This feature is only in the studio version Resolve. So if you're using the free version, you can't do it. It's part of the studio. All the AI stuff is part of the studio version. So this feature is really easy to use. I've got a timeline open. You come up to the heading that says timeline, go to AI tools and speech generator. And then here you can see you've got a little box with all sorts of different things on there. What you do is you type in what you want to say, choose a voice and click generate. So I'm going to grab some words, the same words I was using before. Now I could get it generated in one of their default voices, but I'm going to use my own voice. So I click on that, then I click load and find a sample of my voice. All I've done is I've taken my voice from one of these voiceovers, made a WAV file out of it, something like 26 seconds long. It's not very long. I'm going to go for this one, which is 23 seconds long. Select that, go OK, and now it's got a custom voice loaded. I'm going to give it a name, and then all I have to do is click the generate button. I can generate it and then add it to the timeline, or I can just stick it into the bin. I prefer to stick it into the bin. The big thing I like about this is I can do lots of variations until I get one that I like. So I'm going to click on that, click generate, and wait for it to generate that voice. Now I'm using a system with an NVIDIA 3060 and a 14th generation processor, but there we are. It's now made a voice. I can't listen to it inside of Resolve without closing this dialog. Double click and listen to it.
Hello, David Clarke here from DVC Training, and today I'm going to be looking at a beta feature of DaVinci Resolve 21, which has already come in very handy for me, generating speech.
So that's okay. It says beta for a start. Don't like that, and I don't like the way it says generating speech. The rest of it was fairly okay. What I want to do is go and create some different variations of that. Now I could just pop into AI tools, speech generator. It remembers all that stuff, and I can change the variation and generate it again. But again, to listen to that, I've got to come out of this, double click on it and listen to it.
Of DaVinci Resolve 21, which has already come in very handy for me, generating speech.
But I find that's a pain in the neck. What I like to do is leave that box open and then just keep listening to the variations till I get one that I like. What I'm actually going to do is come up to here, right click on it and say open file location, and then it'll bring up the place where it's actually generated that speech. You can see I've got other things in here as well. Now this thing you either set when you start the project or you set it in the system settings. So if I open up the project settings here, go to the master settings and then pop down towards the bottom where it says project media location. That's where it's going to stick it, and you can choose somewhere else. Give it a folder and choose that. Now when you make up a new project, you can see that's the same thing. It doesn't matter whether you choose it there or afterwards. Logically you should choose it when you start the project. But now you see when I come up and I go to the speech generator, and let's choose another variation. And then if I went to have a look at this one, you can see it's now in a little folder on its own.
Hello, David Clarke here from DVC Training, and today I'm going to be looking at a beta.
So I've decided where it's going to go. I'm changing the variation here. This is only giving me slight variations in the style. I'd like totally different variation in style, please. And you can do that just by changing this generation ID. Simplest thing, click on randomize and it gives you a totally random number. Click on generate and it'll make up a new variation. You've no idea what these will sound like until you listen to them. But this is, for me, what's really useful about it. I can use lots of variations. Now, I could cancel this, have a look at it, pop in and out. I find it's a lot easier just to have this thing up.
Hello, David Clarke here from DVC Training, and today I'm going to be looking at a beta feature of DaVinci Resolve 21, which has already come in very handy for me, generating speech.
See, I think first sentence of that sounded a bit more natural than that one. You might also notice it goes new at the start.
Hello, Dave.
It's just made up a completely random word. Yeah, it does that sometimes. Let's go for a different randomize, generate something else. And while I'm at it, let's do another one. And another one. And even while it's generating, I can just pop to this thing and listen to those.
Hello, David Clarke here from DVC Training, and today I'm going to be looking at a beta feature of DaVinci Resolve 21, which has already come in very handy for me generating speech.
Yeah, that's not bad. I actually quite like that.
Hello, David Clarke here from DVC Training, and today I'm going to be looking at a beta feature of DaVinci Resolve 21, which has already come in very handy for me generating speech.
Now that one, first sentence is a bit crap, but I like the rest of it.
Very handy for me generating speech.
So that one, it gets the generating speech right. It's got some of the other bits wrong, but it gets the generating speech right. If I want to make that one up again, now I've gone ahead and re-randomized the numbers here, but if I want to go back to that one, I can just untick randomize and get that number. That is the generation ID, and shove it back in there, and it should make me exactly the same thing.
Hello, David Clarke here from DVC Training, and today I'm going to be looking at a beta feature of DaVinci Resolve 21, which has already come in very handy for me, generating speech.
And then I can do slight variations on that, because I like the way most of that is sounding. And of course what I could do is I could take the first section from one of them and take the second section from another one. I don't have to use the whole thing as it is, and I often do that when I'm doing this.
Hello, David Clarke here from DVC Training.
I liked the start of that one better, but I didn't like the end of it. I like the end of the other one. So what I would actually do is I would take...
Hello, David Clarke here from
I'll get rid of the new at the start.
Hello, David Clarke here from DVC Training, and today I'm going to be looking at a beta feature of DaVinci Resolve 21, which has already come.
And I'll probably say I'll take that, but I'll take the variation one end.
21, which has already come in very handy for me, generating speech.
I start putting together my conversation like that. It does include things like sharp intakes of breath, which when I'm editing these things, I go to great lengths to get rid of those. It actually puts those in. And I'm almost tempted to leave those in because it makes it sound a bit more real. But anyway, that's how I would end up using it. Just keep generating bits now and again. I do get problems like...
I'm going to be looking at a beta feature of...
This is a beta feature, apparently. And that's not how I say beta. And I did find you can change stuff like that by coming up here and maybe putting in some extra letters. So I can go and stick another E in, and that will make it say beta. Let's have a listen to that.
And today I'm going to be looking at a beta feature of DaVinci Resolve 21, which has already come in very handy for me generating...
So that actually will give me a new front end.
Hello, David Clarke. Hello, David Clarke.
Just trim the front off.
Hello, David Clarke here from DVC Training, and today I'm going to be looking at a beta feature of DaVinci Resolve, which has already come in very handy for me, generating speech.
So you can adjust it just by adding a few extra characters in. That thing at the start where it goes new, I have sometimes, because of this gibberish I get sometimes at the start, put in another word and a full stop. It'll have that word and then a full stop and then it'll start saying the rest of it.
Action. Hello, David Clarke here from DVC Training, and today I'm going to be looking at...
Like so. So you can do quite a bit just by fiddling around with the text prompt. But what I really like about this is this fact you can just come up with lots of variations, probably infinite. The number of times you can click that randomize button, and then you can just do slight variations here. If you feel you're talking too fast, you could slow it down a bit.
Action. Hello, David Clarke here from DVC Training, and today I'm going to be looking at a beta feature.
And that's taken me a bit slower. Honestly, I think I could do a better job of slowing it down by using the way that Resolve does it, which would be to go into Fairlight. And I do love the way that Fairlight can slow things down. And right click and say Elastic Wave Voice. And then you right click on it and say Elastic View. And then when you drag it around, it actually changes the speed of it.
Which has already come in very handy for me, generating speed. Which has already come in very handy for me, generating speed.
And you can see that does a better job than, say, using the AI tools, because it's much better at getting the pitch and the way the voice sounds correct if you slow it down. So I'd probably use that rather than slowing it down in the voice tool. But apart from that, I can actually lay out an entire conversation quite easily, getting it sounding how I like using this AI tool. Now, I have used other AI voice thingamybobs. This is the same voiceover, so it's the same script, which I did using something I can use through the BAT server in Edius, which lets you use just an AI voice tool to take your voice, clone it, and then read something out. And if you listen to that...
Hello, David Clarke here from DVC Training, and today I'm going to be looking at a beta feature of DaVinci Resolve 21, which has already come in very handy for me, generating speech. And this lets you create a voice.
And that is pretty good, but it doesn't sound quite as lively. And the downside really of that kind of voice tool, and there's quite a lot of them online as well, is that you can't customize it. You can't give it a bit more expression, which is what I can do using this. Now you might say to yourself, David, why are you faffing around with this? Stick a microphone in the computer and talk. And yes, I am not going to use this to do my tutorial videos. I find the best way to do my tutorial videos is to sit here and record it. Don't read from a script, just talk as you're doing it. And I find that's a lot better way of actually explaining things and coming across so you're not completely boring. At least I hope I'm not completely boring. I find that's a lot better way of doing it. So I don't read from a script, I record these as I go. When I would use this in my tutorial is I'm coming through, I'm editing what I filmed, and I thought, that's a really bad way to say that. Here's a better way to say it. Now I could go and grab the microphone and do it again, or I could just get that particular sentence done by this thing. I use a sample of how I was speaking at the time. I stick in a sentence, nobody knows that that was made by AI as opposed to me sitting at a microphone. In a drama, for example, I've been making this Doc 2 thing I mentioned a few times in my videos, and we were showing off episode 6 the other day. And it seemed like a good idea, since we take a year or two to knock these episodes up, to have a story so far at the start of it. And I thought, wouldn't it be nice if that would be read out by our main actor? Now, only problem with my main actor is I filmed all this stuff several years ago, as in the 2000s. He doesn't sound the same anymore, because like all of us, he's got older. We all sound different. Also, he lives about an hour away. I'd have to drive over there, sit down, record it, blah, blah, blah. It was a lot easier just to take a sample of his voice from the episode and then get in to do this. I could get that done in a couple of hours, just sitting at my chair with a cup of tea. And it came out like I wanted it to. I couldn't use the way that Edius does it, and most of the other AI stuff does it, because I couldn't just redo a phrase or redo a word or just get a different variation till I found one that I particularly liked. There's another section in there where there is something that he says, and he never said it the way I wanted him to say it. I was the director, he was the actor. How he was saying it wasn't getting the point across, to my mind. So I was able to use this to say it differently. Or I wanted to cut out a line, but that means that he ends a sentence on an inflection, and he shouldn't. Take those couple of words, pop it into this, make a variation that actually sounds like the sentence is finished because I've chopped something else off. So many times when editing, I just want to change things a bit from what we filmed, and I can use this to do that. I could shove in an extra line when he wasn't facing the camera, which maybe helps me then chop out another 2 minutes of waffle, which was great in the script. In the edit, I don't even like that. That's just going on too long. I could actually just put another line to cover it. As long as you don't see his lips, you don't know it's not him. So very, very useful tool. Obviously open to misuse, because you can get anybody to say anything you want. So it's just another good example of don't necessarily believe absolutely everything you hear or see on the TV, social media, whatever, because now it's possible to make anybody say what you want with very simple and relatively cheap stuff. I mean, to get the studio version, you're going to spend about 250 quid. But I do think very, very useful. And of course, don't go around using people's voices without their permission. Maybe if you want David Attenborough to narrate your own nature video that you've filmed or safari video, you could do that now. But as soon as you start sticking on YouTube or showing it to people, you are ripping off David Attenborough. So obviously be careful with what you do with it. Obviously, if you're doing this professionally, you've got to be even more careful than doing it personally. But even personally, don't rip other people off. Of course, you could even take it a step further. Not with DaVinci Resolve, but I do have other AI programs, and these are free AI programs, which let me take a sound recording, stick in a still image, and make it look like the guy is actually saying the words that I've created. Like this, for example. This was a still image of me and a piece of a voiceover, and I just said, make me talk. Might do another video about that, but it isn't DaVinci Resolve, it's just other AI stuff. There's even a new tool that has been added to this AI where you can take thin pictures and make them widescreen. So I will probably make something about that too. Anyway, that's just one of the new things that's in DaVinci Resolve Studio 21. There are lots of others. I might do some other videos about that. This was one of the first that I used, and I thought, wow, that is incredibly useful for me to put right things that I didn't do right at the time I was shooting. So anyway, hope you found that video useful. Don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel, all that sort of thing. And obviously visit the website, www.dvctraining.co.uk. And I'll see you next time.